No, they are 3-2. Ha! Jeez. Yes, they're 3-2, but they did lose to Nakoma 7-6. Let's just start this one over. Well, Shane, we're going to week 6 now. Week 5's done, so we're officially past the halfway point. Last week kind of played out as we anticipated, with the exception of one game, really, with the Amboy East Dubuque matchup. Amboy really turned it on after East Dubuque scored that first touchdown to get themselves that second win in a row and get themselves to 2-3, as well as keeping themselves right now within opportunity to make playoffs. Big games, though. The upstate game of the week was just fantastic. Milledgeville and Orangeville in that one. Milledgeville barely squeaking out a 2-point victory. After basically dominating pretty much the second quarter and most of the third quarter of the game, Orangeville just found another gear there in the fourth quarter and really made a game out of that one. And then, of course, the big one, Le-Win and EPC, in which really Le-Win took full control of that game after halftime.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we expected. I mean, it was close for a while, which tends to be the case when those two teams meet, especially in Pearl City, you know. But then Lena Winslow kind of just wore EPC down, and it showed. The game was never really as close as it had indicated. You know, that's a big win for Lena Winslow. You know, they played EPC and Forreston now, realistically. And West Carroll opened the season, they should have no problem getting the 9-0 now, really running the table as far as the whole conference is seen. They'll be the only undefeated team, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, really, their only competition they have left is in Week 9 in Dakota, and we've already seen what Dakota's done with Forreston.
There's a huge gap there yet, but Week 9's a long way away yet. Teams generally don't digress, although they can. So, you know, hopefully that Week 9 matchup's a little, you know, more interesting than that Dakota Forreston's big-time matchup was. So.
Right, but let's not look too far ahead, because we got a couple big games coming up, specifically in the Northwest. Forreston's already passed all their hard parts of the schedule, so they're going to coast from here on out. They're going to go 8-1. Well, they do have that one game left yet. They still got to play West Carroll, so let's not count that game out yet, because West Carroll did give them fits last year, even though Forreston won that one big.
Right.
So I don't want to discredit West Carroll yet.
That'll still
be a very good game. It will definitely be most likely our Northwest game of the week when it comes. But, I mean, Dakota still has to play EPC and Lena Winslow, and obviously Lena Winslow only has Dakota left coming in Week 9. So there's still some games that can be played, but I agree with you. Lena Winslow's in control of their own destiny from this point forward. I don't see them not going 9-0 on the year. But complacency could be a big key, especially going in Week 9 when you play Dakota in a big rivalry game. Le-Win's got to keep focused.
Well, that's just it. You know, obviously we got a lot of games to talk about, but you know, just turn the page a little bit ahead. You know, that Week 9 matchup could be bad. In the sense of the following week, if Dakota happens to go 5-4, you know, we were doing some projections. 5-4 will probably get them in now. You know, you've seen occasionally where two teams will play back-to-back weeks, and the second game is not the same way the first game goes. But the way Lena Winslow is playing right now, if I was the other teams in the conference and in the state, I would greatly be trying to avoid a 5-4 record. At this point, you do not want to match up with Lena Winslow in the first round.
Oh, gosh, no. I mean, Lena Winslow is one of those teams where year in and year out, you know what they're going to be come playoff time, because they're consistently building up as the season goes on.
And they're already
there.
Right. So,
on the other side of the conference, though, Stockton, Polo, Orangeville, all at 3-2. Milledgeville and Aquin at 4-1. Right now, it's kind of looking like how I kind of predicted it to be, where Aquin and Milledgeville are both there together. Stockton, Polo, Orangeville are kind of in that pile, and who's going to win those matchups? Obviously, Polo's already beat Orangeville. Stockton actually has already beat Milledgeville as well. So Milledgeville still has to play Aquin. Orangeville still has to play Aquin. Stockton and Polo still have to meet. Stockton and Orangeville still have to meet. So they got a lot of good games there in the upstate side, too.
And that's it. I mean, week 9, we're talking about that Dakota-Lena-Winslow matchup, but Aquin and Milledgeville face off as well.
All right, so we're going to AFC this week, where Stockton is going to play the AFC Raiders. Stockton comes in this game, Shane, with a 3-2 record, while AFC got win number 2 last week to move to 2-3. Last week, Stockton beat River Ridge 34-0 there at John O'Boyle Field, while AFC got the privilege of playing River Valley to a 60-0 victory. And
Man,
what a game!
yeah, it was close, and then it started.
Anyhow, on to this game. Last year, this game took place in Week 9, and Stockton won this matchup 46-19. I don't see that kind of score differential this time around, but AFC really hasn't been playing up to what we thought that they could be at so far to this point season, albeit with the exception of the big blowout this past week.
Right. Like you said, AFC hasn't been playing that well. Stockton, their 2 losses have been close. West Carroll and Ottawa Marquette. Those look pretty good on paper. Those are 2 good teams that you lost to. And then going forward for Stockton, this is a big game for them against AFC. You got to get that 4th win because you still got Polo, you got Aquin and Orangeville to finish out your season. So, not saying you can't beat any of those 3 teams. Obviously, that Aquin game will be pretty hard matchup-wise. But this is a big game for Stockton.
It is. I mean, obviously, we already know Stockton 5-4. They're going to be in because their crossover was West Carroll, and then they had Marquette as well.
Right. That's a lot of points.
That's a lot. On top of, that between Aquin or Milledgeville, they're going to get anywhere from 8 to 7 wins. So you got wins coming.
Stockton will have probably one of the most playoff points in the conference.
Yes, they could actually be, if they were to go 5-4, they would be the highest seeded 5-4, I think.
And still faithfully
Or Forreston.
Right.
But, yeah, don't go 5-4. Because
Get
you're not
in Stockton.
Well, anybody really.
Right.
It's great to make the playoffs, but 5-4 this year is not going to be a happy first round game. Let's just put it that way.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Travel-wise.
It will be close travel-wise. It won't be good. Anyhow. Stockton.
Get a little sidetracked sometimes.
We do. But it's all good. Stockton still has not lost an upstate game. So they are still in contention with Aquin for the conference title, and if Milledgeville can beat Stockton, then you got an opportunity for a 3-way there at the top of the conference.
Right.
If Milledgeville were to beat
Right, and Stockton has Polo and Aquin at home too. Aquin hasn't always fared the best on the road at Stockton. Not many teams have over the years, but that's a game that will obviously be big-time playoff and conference implications.
So, I mean, AFC's got a lot of work to do. They're not out of playoff contention yet, but this is, as much of it as it is a must-win for Stockton, I also see it as a must-win for AFC, more so.
Very much so.
Because, I mean, yeah, Stockton's got 3 tough games coming up after this week as well that are going to challenge them, I feel.
Right.
But they're not winnable games. If they were AFC, on the other hand, they still got some tough games as well because they still got Milledgeville and Polo, and then they end the year with Warren. So they definitely got to get a win here. But I do like Stockton on the road.
I will take Stockton as well. I just, everything that we're talking about, I think that Stockton's just got a little bit too much for AFC at this point, but maybe the Raiders will pick it up a little bit and make it a pretty interesting ballgame.
Shane, we're going to go to Polo, where they're going to host the River Ridge Wildcats. River Ridge comes in this game with a 2-3 record. Polo comes in with a 3-2 record. Last week, River Ridge lost to Stockton 34-0, as we previously mentioned, while Polo took care of Warren 41-8. Last year, these two teams met up in Week 1. We were kind of surprised by that score, as Polo won that game 22-0. This year, you know, River Ridge has a couple wins already under their belt, where at this time last year they were sitting at 0-5. Polo obviously is 2 years removed from that very strong team that went 9-0 and eventually lost in the quarterfinals, as we kind of start to see Polo's trail from the top of the conference. Already taken on an Aquin team that pretty much routed them in the second half of a game that was very close, obviously tied in the first half. But Aquin took over that game. River Ridge really hasn't played anybody yet that, I mean, outside of Stockton, I mean, they lost to Orangeville. They lost to Stockton. Both of them were pretty big games there. And then they did get the win over AFC, and then they squeaked out a win over Galena.
Yeah, I mean, River Ridge's wins haven't necessarily been impressive to this point, but they're not playing. I mean, you know, it's easy to look at a 34-0 score of Stockton or whatever the case may be, but they're not playing terrible football. You know, 22-0 last year in Week 1, you can write whatever you want about that game. You know, first game, whatever, Polo on the decline. We thought maybe River Ridge was that much more improved. But towards the end of the season, that became the case. Coming into this season, you know, we thought in our preview video, we talked, hey, maybe River Ridge can challenge for that 4th or 5th win. You know, they still got Moose Heart. They'll get 3 wins for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But you still got the big dogs left on the upstate side to play. Unfortunately, it starts this week with Polo. 22-0 last year. I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer to that again this year. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I think, you know, 3 scores is right around what this game to me looks like.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I mean, you look at some of the things that have happened already. I mean, granted, you can't compare scores, but at the same time you can, and I'm gonna do that right now. Polo beat Orangeville by a score. Orangeville beat River Ridge. Trying to think what that score was, but it's just not coming to me.
Well, it was close.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
I want to say it was like 8 points, something like that.
Could be.
Because River Ridge led that game against Orangeville to start out with.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're right. I mean, River Ridge can play. This is a prime opportunity to wake up what happened last week against Stockton, because here you're taking on a team that I feel can very much challenge Stockton in the coming weeks as well. So, being that it is in Polo, though, I do like the Marcos in this game. All right, Warren in Milledgeville. Milledgeville comes in with a 4-1 record. Warren is officially eliminated from any postseason play, as they are 0-5. Last week, Milledgeville beat Orangeville in our upstate game of the week, 30-28, in exciting fashion. And Warren lost Polo as projected, 41-8. However, last year this game was very close. It was a Week 9 game. Milledgeville needed the victory to get in to make the playoffs, which they did, 20-16. Don't see that happening this year.
no, Milledgeville's looking to be pretty good. You know, can't say the same for Warren.
Well,
it's not funny. It's right. I mean, every year you have a team on both sides of the conference that'll probably go 0-9. This year it's going to be Warren.
Next year will be somebody else.
Right. I mean, that's just the way it is. Warren's numbers are dwindling. You know, we've been on various resources. So, a lot of people have said Warren's turning into a ghost town, so to speak. So, obviously, not a lot of people are there, not a lot of kids in the school, less talent on the football team. It's just the way it is. Um, Warren has some good athletes though, but Milledgeville's just too good for him. Realistically, shouldn't be close.
And there you go. 6 varsity players to a junior and sophomore dominated team. I mean, Milledgeville's starting lineup is 2 seniors and the rest are all juniors, pretty much. And let me tell you, that's pretty impressive what they've done to this point. It's actually the 3rd year in a row now that Milledgeville has gotten off to a 4-1 start. 2 years ago, we said they were the worst 4-1 team in the state, and they proved that.
They were.
And by not making the playoffs. But last year, they squeaked out that Week 9 win, and then they nearly lost to Marquette in the first round. But this year, much more improved, much better. A team that we definitely see getting to the playoffs for sure. How far they go will determine their matchup when that gets drawn out. But they're putting themselves in the right positions. And this week, they become playoff eligible with win number 5.
Yeah, I mean, really, I already said I'm going to take Milledgeville, but just to touch up on a few points, you look at those 2 4-1 teams before, and you looked at the schedule going forward, and you thought, they'll be right on the brink this year, not so much. We're more to the point now, looking forward to that, 7-1 matchup in Week 9 for all the marbles against Aquin. So just play your game. Week in, week out to Week 9, realistically, is the next time Milledgeville should have a meaningful game, so to speak. So, Milledgeville big against Warren for sure.
Shane, we're heading down to the St. Louis area where Madison is going to play host to Du-Pec this week. This game's going to take place on Saturday. Du-Pec comes in with an 0-5 record, officially eliminated from the playoffs, while Madison comes in with a 3-2 record after they lost to Nokomis last week, 7-6. Du-Pec also losing to Dakota 45-6. This obviously is the first ever meeting between these 2 schools, as Du-Pec picked this up as their non-conference game after Chicago Hope bailed on their what would have been their non-conference game originally. But here we are, Saturday game, Du-Pec at Madison. I haven't really been impressed with the wins that Madison has put up. Granted, they've been by wide margin of scores, but you're talking about games like Our Lady of the Sacred Heart and schools of that nature. But Du-Pec, I mean, they play tough, obviously, but they get steamrolled by the upper echelon teams a lot, have been this year as well, even with the co-op. I just don't know how to perceive this game.
Well, you can have all the talent in the world in the first year of a co-op, and odds are pretty good you're going to struggle. I mean, it's hard to win right away in a co-op, don't get me wrong. You look at the lower level of Du-Pec, and they have a lot of talented kids. Du-Pec's not going to be a slouch here in a couple of years. That doesn't help them much this week, obviously. But, things aren't as dim for Du-Pec as what they seem right now. You're halfway through your first season. Next year's not that far away, and before you know it, you're starting to get competitive, It's a long bus ride down to East St. Louis. I like what they're doing at Du-Pec. I really do, They have a good coaching staff on hand and have some athletes. It's just going to take a while to get the ball rolling. It's hard to go that far. I mean, it's hard to go that far at this point in the season and expect something good to happen. You know, we looked at this schedule when it first came out and we thought, okay, maybe Du-Pec's going to win this.
Yep.
And then Madison happened, I guess. There's no better way to put it. You know, unfortunately, you know, you're looking at 6.5, 7 hours down there, and you're probably going to have a lot of what has happened to this point up here. So it's good to get out of the area, see some teams, you know, but it doesn't always fare the best.
That's a 6.5 hour drive if you're driving with Shane. If you're driving with Kyle, that's a 4.5 hour drive.
Yeah, I don't really know.
But
You're on a bus.
you're on a bus. It is going to be more than 4.5 hours. And it'll probably be closer to your 6 hours. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, you're right. This is a game that we thought Du-Pec could win when we originally saw it penciled in on the schedule. But I think Madison's going to be too much for Du-Pec. I'm going with Madison. Okay, so we're going to Galena chain. EPC comes in with a 3-2 record, while Galena comes in with an 0-5 record. Last week, EPC lost to Lena Winslow in our Northwest game of the week, 34-6, after being down just 12-6 at halftime. And Galena lost, as expected, 46-0 to West Carroll. And last year, this game took place in week 5, and EPC won this game 49-23. Not really a lot to talk about here. I really anticipate probably a larger score differential than that.
Yeah, I just want to say a quick few points here. You know, EPC's had an easy schedule until they met Forreston and Lena Winslow. Took the 2 losses as we expected. Schedule gets easier until they face Dakota and West Carroll later. Never thought I'd say this, but you're glad to see Galena on the schedule, make the trip, come home with a win.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, win number 4 is right around the corner. Galena's obviously already
Mailed it in.
They're 0-5, so they're done. They can't make the playoffs. Nothing's going to change there.
I will say one thing. Don't get caught like Dakota did last week of last year where Galena decided to play a game.
Right.
I mean, that can happen.
Don't overlook them.
Right.
You got to play them because we know that they have athletes.
Right. So
they do have athletes. We know that.
But EPC big for me.
Yeah, I like EPC big in this one as well. We come back to the Le-Win Athletic Bowl here, Shane, where the 5-0 Panthers are our only undefeated team left in the NUIC. They play host to 2-3 Amboy. Last week, Amboy beat East Dubuque for their second consecutive win on the year, 33-7, while Le-Win faced off with EPC, in which we just mentioned that big Northwest game of the week. Put the hammer down, winning that game 34-6. Last year, this game took place in week 6 as well. Le-Win won this game 34-0. Le-Win's firing on all cylinders right now. I just don't see where Amboy is going to be able to compete with what the Panthers got going on.
Right. I kind of feel bad that we don't really have a lot of content to give our viewers on this game. You know, Amboy's got ties, just not putting it together this year, kind of like last year. Lena Winslow, for all intents and purposes, have faced the brunt of their schedule. You're pretty much smooth sailing the 9-0 as far as I'm concerned, as far as what I'm seeing, as far as the teams ahead lie. Yeah, you know, I mean, you got Amboy, Warren, Du-Pec, and Dakota. Maybe that Dakota game's a little better matchup later in the year. At this point, I'd say no. You know, you got 3 weeks in a row here where you're probably going to cruise to a win, maybe a 4th. Just stay healthy, get to the playoffs, riding high, keep the intensity level high, which is hard to do in these weeks. You know, you've got to find a new way to challenge your kids, so to speak. Kind of like what Dubuque is facing down at Forreston now. Made comment about that after the Aquin game. So,
well, as long as Le-Win stays the course and stays focused on the task at hand, I see them being the only undefeated team coming into the Class 1A North bracket. So they're going to be the number 1 seed.
And
you're going to get number 16,
5,
potentially number 8 or number 9. You're going to have a cakewalk to the quarterfinals.
Well, you know, we're talking a little bit about that in the prelude. You know, you don't want to be 5-4, and the way it looks now, we could have a 5-4 team, most likely, and potentially another one. And you look at the whole 16 teams in the North, and I'm not seeing a lot of 5-4 here. So you could see a Dakota 5-4 against Lena Winslow, and bad things happen. So
Yep, they sure do. But in this matchup, I'm taking the Panthers, and rather decisively. Shane, we're going to Forreston this week, where they're going to play host to East Dubuque. They basically have opposite records. East Dubuque comes in with a 1-4 record. Forreston comes in with that 4-1 record. Last week, East Dubuque lost in a game that we picked them to win in. After scoring the first touchdown of the game, they decided to take the rest of the night off. Amboy won that game, 33-7. And Forreston took care of Aquin in a big crossover matchup, 50-19. And that was a really big win for Forreston. And it was a lot larger than what that score says, based off of what Forreston did, how quickly they did it, and because if you think about it, at the 8-minute mark of the third quarter, Forreston already had 50 points and then scored the rest of the game.
right, and we looked at that matchup, and the potential matchup of last year had Aquin beat Marquette, and a lot of Aquin fans wanted that game. And I'm sure going into last week, the Aquin coaching staff, probably had a good idea of what was going to happen, but you still want that game so you can see where your team's matching up.
Really get better.
Right. Forreston did exactly what we thought they would do. The only question mark was going to be was how vulnerable they were going to be to the pass. Did they give up some plays? Yeah, they gave up a lot of yards on pass. But as we've seen over time, that a run-predominant team generally beats a spread team. Aquin is running more out of their spread now this year than they have in years past, but for all intents and purposes, they're still that spread team that's known for throwing the ball in the conference. And Forreston did exactly what you want to do. You bend, but you don't break.
Well, it's not so much the difference of the spread, but the physicality of what they play at. And Forreston, we both have taken in Aquin games, and we both have seen Forreston play. Who's more physical?
Right.
It's just, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out who's going to win these games if you actually see the teams that they play.
Right.
And, that's how this game's going to go. Last year, Forreston beat East Dubuque 62-0 in the same week. I see it happening again. East Dubuque, I'm sorry, but you're going to get loss number 5. Your chance for the playoffs are going to go out the window. You might as well start focusing on your state-ranked basketball team.
And now, very well said. And on the opposite side, Forreston, you get to that 5-win, you're playoff eligible. Not that it was ever in question, but you feel good getting that 5th win. Forreston running clock 62-0 last year. Somewhere in that.
I just have to say, I'm just kind of disappointed where East Dubuque is at this year. I really anticipated a lot from them this year. Probably more so than I should have, but based off of what they did last year, I just saw a lot more from them this year. So, we knew that they were starting off with a harder schedule this year, but it almost seems like, especially after last week's loss to Amboy, that they kind of mailed it in for basketball season already.
Well, and that's the disappointing part, is they needed that Amboy one, because you look at their schedule as to what they have left.
Winnable games.
They had Du-Pec and Orangeville. Obviously, the Orangeville game will probably be a pretty close game, but the Du-Pec game, no offense, that's East Dubuque all night long. And you set yourself up for that West Carroll game. Yeah, West Carroll's probably going to beat you, but week 9, you never know. But
injuries can happen. Things can happen.
But, yeah, after last week, the season's over. I just, like you, I expected more out of them. I'm sure they did as well. You don't want to kick anybody while they're down, but what else can you do?
No, you can't. But you're going up against defending state champs, and
good night.
Yeah, it's over. Sorry, East Dubuque, but see you next season. Our upstate game of the week brings us, Shane, back to Conley Field in Freeport, where the Aquin Bulldogs are going to play host to the Orangeville Broncos. Orangeville comes in this game with a 3-2 record after they narrowly lost to Milledgeville 30-28 last week in our upstate game of the week. And Aquin comes in at 4-1 after they lost in our big crossover matchup to Forreston 50-19. Shane, last year this game took place in week 5, so it's taking place a week later. But Aquin won this game 40-6 last year. Aquin's a little bit different team this year than last. I just don't feel that their line play is up to the par of where it should be. In fact, this year's Aquin team reminds me a lot of last year's Stockton team as far as what their line play is. Orangeville, on the other hand, they're starting to get things going, but they definitely struggled in the run game against Milledgeville, which was kind of disconcerting to me because Orangeville needs to get that run game going.
Right, they do, and that's vital. You know, you got a guy who's basically their offense. I mean, obviously you got guesses and whatnot as far as targets, but he's your go-to guy for, no pun intended, but, you know, he's your go-to as far as to what Orangeville does on offense. That's no secret. And as far as Aquin, yeah, you touched on it a little bit, and Aquin's sitting there at 4-1, and I don't know, maybe I'm sitting over here in left field by myself, but I'm kind of disappointed in Aquin this year, so to speak.
I am too.
We looked at last year, and we thought this year, you know, Aquin should cruise to 9-0. Or not 9-0, they had Forreston. Pardon.
8-1.
8-1. Can they still get to 8-1? Sure, but there's just a different feel when covering Aquin. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you do.
I do, but it's disappointing because they're not to where I thought they'd be, so to speak.
They're not. And they got a lot of improvements to make.
Right.
They have a lot of growing to do.
Right.
Yeah, as the season goes, both mentally and physically.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean, it is week 5, and who knows, maybe we see him in the quarters again this year. I don't anticipate that, but we didn't last year.
The way they're playing right now, the quarters is not going to be of question.
Right.
They will not make it that far at the rate that they have played the first 5 games of the season. That's how unimpressive they are. They get off to slow starts. Those slow starts are going to kill you against the better teams. Forreston proved that. And they got some tough games coming up with some teams that I feel that can match up with them. You got one coming this week with Orangeville. And I think Orangeville can match up with Aquin.
I agree completely. I mean, well, we go back to even last week's projection when we picked that Milledgeville-Orangeville game, and we looked at the score, and we said, "Wow, that's a lot of points to make up from last year to this year." But Orangeville did. So now you're looking here, and you see Aquin beat Orangeville 40-6 last year, and you're thinking, "Wow, can Orangeville make up 34 points?"
Yes,
you're damn right they can.
Yeah.
And the way Aquin has started off slow, and they've done nothing to prove to me otherwise that they won't start slow against Friday night. And who knows? Maybe Orangeville takes them.
I look at Orangeville's 2 losses. They lost 8 points to Polo. Keep in mind who they were missing in that game, and it was in week 1.
You play that game again, it's probably a different outcome.
I agree. You look at Aquin's 1 loss. Yeah, they got annihilated by Forreston.
You play that game again, it's the same.
Exactly. So, case in point.
Sorry.
That's okay. But Orangeville does match up really well with Aquin's game because Orangeville has the athletes that can keep up with the speed of the game that Aquin wants to run. They are very good, sound tacklers. They need to work on their run defense a little bit because that was kind of porous last week. Obviously, that's kind of where the game got away from them. They let off after they got back into the game, they gave up a big 53-yard run on their very next play, but they battled, and they're battle-tested. And I'm telling you, this game's going to be a lot closer than that 40-6 game from last year. And I think Orangeville's got a shot, but I do like Aquin at home.
Yeah, I'll take Aquin at home. I just think that they're going to get it going and maybe start to put all the pieces together that they have.
Shane, our Northwest game of the week takes us back to Dakota, where they will play host to West Carroll. Both teams come in with the expected 4-1 records. Last week, West Carroll won 46-0 over Galena, while Dakota took care of Du-Pec 45-6. Last year, Shane, this game took place in week 1 where Dakota won 14-0. It was tied at 0 at halftime. Dakota pulled out 2 scores at the end of in the second half to win that game.
Yep.
But it was also one of those games where we felt had it been played later in the season, West Carroll would have probably won that game.
Right. West Carroll really improved and basically gave Forreston a run for their money last year.
Kind of. I mean, they were down 26-0.
But, Forreston credits that to part of the success that they had at the state championship.
Well, it's because they got shut out in the second half by West Carroll.
So, anyways, this game's very intriguing on different levels. Basically, you got 2 questions for me, or 2 questions I'm going to ask you. I know the answers to them. Can Dakota stop West Carroll's pass, and can West Carroll stop Dakota's run? To me, personally, no, on both counts.
Well, that's where we're probably going to disagree. Because, and here's why. West Carroll does have a decent defense.
I don't disagree with that.
I mean, they got one of the best linebackers in the conference in Devin Murray. There's no doubt about that. Now, I'm not saying that the rest of the defense is up to par where Devin's playing, but they have potential to be there. It's just, where's their line play at? That's right. That's where we need to look at the most. As far as Dakota stopping the pass, West Carroll's not one of those teams like Aquin where they throw it downfield. They're more of a swing pass type of team. I mean, they'll hit you on some quick slants. They're going to throw the out routes. But you're talking about the Plattenberger twins, and I'm telling you, I mean, with Cody being able to be effective at both throwing the ball and running the ball from the quarterback position, Caleb hasn't factored much into the offense yet. He has a little bit. I kind of expected a little bit more out of him, but I think some of it could be coming from which direction they're going. But, I mean, you got Corey Simpson and you got Caleb Hartman at the running back position. So, I mean, they have a lot of options, and they can make things happen. Their only loss is to Lena Winslow back in week 1, so they're coming off of their 4 straight wins. But you look at Dakota, their only loss was to Forreston. And to me, that was a game where Dakota just didn't show up. So I really don't know where Dakota's at mentally. But they didn't follow it up with a very good game the following week with East Dubuque. And that's where I start to kind of look at things. I look at where West Carroll's at, where Dakota's at. Can Dakota stop the pass? Yes. They're just not very effective at it. They need to work on that. Can West Carroll stop the run? Yes. But Dakota brings an offense that West Carroll has problems stopping.
Right. And, for me, from a Dakota perspective in this situation, I watched them at Pecatonic, and, they score 16 seconds out of the gate, and, you're thinking, this is okay. You're in Pecatonic, at least you get to go to Seminoles after the game. You get a good meal out of it at least. And then it's just kind of blah. Good teams don't blah, for long periods of time like that. You didn't have a running clock till towards the end of the game. And yes, you were never in jeopardy of losing the game. It just had a weird feel to it, like they were going through the motions, and we've seen that for many years now, kind of. Why should I believe that that's going to change this week?
Well, and here's the thing. It's Dakota's homecoming. So you get all them homecoming festivities. West Carroll's prime. They're ready. I'm taking West Carroll.
And I think all those things considered, I'll take Dakota just for the fact home. Maybe they come out a little more jacked up this week.
So that is where our Week 6 games will be and what our predictions are. Shane, we can really see a couple good games here. Obviously, our upstate and northwest games of the week are going to be really interesting matchups. River Ridge at Polo will be a good matchup, and potentially Stockton at AFC, depending on where AFC has come. And the big game that I'm really interested in outside of the playoff teams is the Du-Pec Madison game. I want to see Du-Pec get a win. I hope that they can pull out a win. I know I didn't pick them, you didn't pick them, but this is a great opportunity for Du-Pec. I hope they get jacked up for that bus ride. I mean, it's not every day you get to travel 6 hours to take on a team that you've never seen before. Granted, Madison's kind of a rough area, but it should still be fun, and it gives them that playoff type environment.
Well, let's just say we're many years removed from the 1 through 32 scheme. This kind of gives you a taste of what it used to be like, and when state champions were true state champions. So, you get on the bus, have some fun, have a blast with it, see what happens.
Yep, I agree. So get out to the games this week, support the kids, keep doing what you're doing, and as always, root for the NUIC.